from refusing to get the COVID-19 vaccination and putting his team's future at risk, to getting suspended by the Nets over anti-Semitic comments. Kyrie Irving's time in Brooklyn was filled with controversies, which is why it's no surprise that Uncle Drew has no regrets over leaving the Nets. The 8-time NBA All-Star recently made the move from Brooklyn to the Dallas Mavericks. His move came after spending 4 years with the Nets. Those 4 years, let's just put it this way, could have gone a lot better for both him and the Nets.
Irving using the Drummond screen. Irving! The crimson sauce! And the foul!
But for one reason or another, his time in Brooklyn just kept getting disrupted. There were some unfortunate disruptions such as injuries, but there were also some really stupid situations which could have been avoided. And it's not like all of the blame lies with the Nets. Kyrie himself also needs to put his hand up and admit that he could have been a lot smarter in his time with the Nets.
Just playing in the flow. Everything, just waiting for the opportunities, letting the game come to me, and just trusting that we were just going to make the right basketball plays out there for one another.
The former Cleveland man was talking to the media at the NBA All-Star Media Day before participating in the All-Star Game. While talking, he spoke about his time with the Brooklyn Nets and his recent exit from the franchise. He stressed that he doesn't have any regrets about how he left Brooklyn. But to my surprise, he also defended his decision to join the franchise in the first place. And according to him, joining the Nets was a dream come true.
And give them support in a way where I knew that they knew they can hold me accountable and I can hold them accountable. So just meeting them where they are. And it was just a lot, like hearing...
Yup, he said that. Like, it's not exactly a secret that Kyrie Irving's time with the Nets didn't go too well. But somehow, the former Cavaliers man still doesn't have any regrets over joining the Brooklyn side. Now, that might be a little surprising for people, as it was for me. But the point guard shared that he came to Brooklyn with a plan. He was adamant that he wanted to stay there for a long time.
kind of dealt with in a way that doesn't make me feel respected. And there were times throughout this process when I was in Brooklyn where I felt very disrespected.
The one-time NBA champion shared that he wishes things had gone differently for him and the Nets, as he spoke about their aspirations of becoming champions and making history together. However, you also need to take into account the appeal Brooklyn had at that time. They had apparently just started on a journey to build a super team that would win them multiple championships.
Meanwhile, Nets trying to pull out a win in the meantime. Irving, oh yeah! Brooklyn back in front tonight.
Well, at least that was their plan at that time. They acquired Kevin Durant and also picked up scoring machine James Harden at one point. With the acquisition of Irving, they signaled their intent to the whole NBA. They were serious about winning the championship. But what happened afterward? It's there for everyone to see. Problems with discipline, star players not getting along with the management, and all that jazz.
Basketball. Durant was giving a look to indicate as such as well. Irving, that is tough for everyone but him.
The Brooklyn side kept going deeper and deeper into turmoil, and now, after losing their star players, they'll have to go into a rebuild all over again. While Kyrie's being a total sport about his move from Brooklyn at the last minute, there are a lot of questions being asked around the way he exited the Nets. But Irving is convinced trade requests should not be a problem. If you remember, it was extensively reported that Kevin Durant had requested a trade away from the Nets in the offseason.
I committed to this organization for 4 years last summer with the idea that we was going to play with that group that we kind of went on that little run with the second round with.
And not just once, but multiple times. As per the reports, he even went as far as asking the Nets to either trade him or fire then head coach Steve Nash. Somehow both of them ended up starting the new NBA season at the Nets, even though Nash got fired a little later. But if you remember, there was this conversation bubbling up at that time around the NBA. Conversation around potential trade requests and how they're not fair to the franchises.
Down the Blazers in the fourth quarter yesterday. Houston, the rookie against Durant. Durant, the jumper is there.
So, when Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving both requested trades again last month, some people weren't quite happy about it. The star duo did end up getting their moves as Durant went to the Suns and Irving to the Mavs.
Super excited and grateful for the opportunity.
really feel wanted, and I know that they had to give up some pieces for me to get here, so I don't take that for granted.
But both of them are criticized for forcing their way out of the Nets. However, the 8-time NBA All-Star wasn't having any of that criticism. Responding to a similar question, he asked why shouldn't players be able to ask for trades? If a player is in a bad situation and makes a business decision to go somewhere else, there shouldn't be any problems. He further clarified his stance, saying that not all employees and employers are going to get along. So having that legal path to get out of a bad situation should always be there, and it should be encouraged rather than being discouraged. Now, I have to say that I agree with what Irving is saying, but I also understand where the franchise is coming from. Like, the Nets are going to have to go into a rebuild mid-season. Now, I've always been a big Kyrie fan, and whatever has happened with him and the Nets, one thing you can't deny is his ability to win you games. After 3 seasons full of disappointment, this was finally looking like a season where Kyrie would actually make a difference for the Nets, with no injury problems. Both he and Durant had been in scintillating scoring form so far this season. The Nets had made a pretty good comeback and were sitting in a playoff position. They must have been looking for a last dance from their star duo this season before they go into their impending rebuild, because it was clear that Durant and Irving were going to leave. However, the Nets wouldn't be happy about having to let both of them go on such short notice. It meant that the rebuild they had to work on for next season was imposed on them in the middle of this season, a season where they could have made a good run into the playoffs. But if you ask me honestly, the Nets wouldn't be too mad to let Kyrie leave. The Nets could have done without him. I think the trade that stung them the most is Durant's move to Phoenix. With the form that Kevin had been in this season, the Nets would have loved to finish the season with him. Now, while the Nets might be upset about Durant's departure, I think that Kyrie's move was a win-win for both parties. Well, of course, Irving doesn't have any regrets over his move to Dallas. He might actually have come to the Nets with big aspirations, but it's no secret that he wasn't particularly happy with how the Brooklyn franchise treated him. Since his suspension earlier this season over allegations of anti-Semitism, it was clear that there was no back for him and the Nets. The trust deficit that had developed between the two had no remedy. Now, I admit that Kyrie wasn't particularly smart in the whole anti-Semitism fiasco. He didn't do himself any favors, but I can understand why he must have felt betrayed by the Nets. At the time when all of this controversy took place, the Nets were quite quick in taking action against Kyrie. He was suspended immediately and given a long list of to-dos before he can make his comeback to the NBA. And this wasn't done by the NBA, mind you. The action was taken by the Brooklyn Nets on their own. In that whole scenario, Kyrie definitely felt disrespected by the media and the Nets. When he was labeled an anti-Semite everywhere, he felt that he wasn't given a fair chance to explain himself. That's why when he moved to Dallas, he expressed that it's good to be in a place where he's celebrated and not just tolerated. And well, the Nets can also do without such controversies, which is why they weren't reluctant to let him go. But that was all about Kyrie and his move to the Dallas Mavericks. See ya!